So there's not a day that goes by that I don't get asked, what's the best investment I can make? It's a very valid question, and I'm going to walk you through the exact steps to get to the best investment for you. That's a very important concept here, because I think a lot of people think that there's one specific best investment out there. If that was the case, wouldn't we all be investing in it and nobody else would invest in anything else, just from a common sense approach? So obviously there's no such thing as an exact best investment, but I'm going to walk you through exactly what you need to know in order to get to your conclusion. So when I first started out online, everybody would ask me this, and I'd say, probably the S&P 500 index fund or ETF and a Roth IRA would probably be a great start. And I felt like that was a great answer at the time. But the thing is, with time, when the market shifted and the S&P 500 didn't do well in the short term, people came from ahead and people didn't understand the bigger picture, and they were missing a lot of the key concepts in the context, in fact, about investing in the S&P 500. And if you want to watch the video on the 4 lies of the S&P 500, it's in the top right-hand corner for you. But all in all, I thought that was a short-sighted and honestly not a helpful answer. And here's why. Because if I tell somebody that, number one, they have no idea really what I'm saying, and they're just taking my word and hoping it works. So they're instantly becoming reliant on me to answer questions. And so if that investment doesn't work per se, it will. But if it doesn't in the short term, they're going to feel some type of way because it's not entirely truthful, in fact. And there's a lot more context that goes into it. Like I said in the video in the top right-hand corner, where you can watch the 4 lies, or essentially more context on investing in the S&P 500 fund. But not only was it short-sighted and maybe not even helpful, but I think it's oftentimes disastrous. And so I stopped actually giving that answer out online. So when somebody asks me on my IG Live or just in passing or on Twitter, hey, what's the best investment should I make? Should I invest in the S&P 500? If they're even asking me that question, I say invest in education, because that is the best use of those dollars. If I went ahead and put my money in the best investment, quote unquote, but I didn't know how to handle that best investment, I give my teenager, 16-year-old, the keys to a Lamborghini, there's a good chance they wreck that car. There's a good chance they wreck that amazing best investment, even though it's the best investment. And so I'm thinking from a place of, I've had some experience with a lot of individuals, thousands in fact, and I think the worst thing to do in the world is literally tell them, hey, here are the keys to the Lamborghini, just go do it. That is such a disastrous way to look at it. And so I've taken a step back and I've thought about this. How do I actually want to present what is the best investment in a nutshell? And oftentimes you'll hear me kind of dismiss this question online or through an IG Live because there's so much context to it. But that's why I'm building this video for you, because I know that I'm going to send this to you right after the IG Live, or I can reference this video at any given point in time. And if you haven't already subscribed to my page, I don't know what you're doing, if I'm being honest. You need to go subscribe right below, right this second, because that's the only way you're going to learn and get to the better wealth building journey that you should be on right now. So there was another stat that I saw recently, was nearly 1 in 5 people close their investing account after 12 months. This was back in 2022. Let's talk about historical context and where we were in the markets at the time. So as everybody knows, COVID happened in 2020. After COVID, the huge dip that occurred 2020, the end of 2020 and into 2021 ran at a rapid rate, and everybody was investing all of a sudden. Great to see that. I love to see people getting into the market, but what we saw right after was the reality of the market. So people thought you could just get rich. People thought the markets would just go way up, and they came to the realization that doesn't happen. And when the markets crashed, 20% of people that opened accounts ended up closing accounts. That's not a great stat, but that percentage actually rises for Gen Z and millennial folks, and that makes me even more concerned, because those are the individuals that are needing to open these accounts and keeping them open and investing for the long haul to actually get wealthy. And unfortunately, their increased risk is huge. So if I answer the question of what's the best investment, and I give them the S&P 500 index or ETF through Vanguard, through Charles Schwab, through Fidelity, whatever, and they go do that, and then the market has a pullback or the market has a correction or we have a recession, what are they naturally going to do? They're going to panic sell. And it puts them in a very disadvantageous spot. And I don't want to put people in that. So I always say, if you don't know that question, you either have one of 2 choices. You're either going to take a ton of time on YouTube, a ton of time on social media content, following all my stuff, piecing it together, hoping it's correct, and making your general assumptions about it. And that takes a lot of time, which costs money, or you're going to pay money to speed your process up through Budget Dog Academy or Millionaire Club, which is the most obvious choice. And those are both in my show notes below. My Millionaire Club is a starter club to get started with investing. And Budget Dog Academy is for my serious folks that really want this in line and figuring this out right this second, because they understand time is money and they don't want to waste any more time. The longer you wait, the more expensive it becomes on your end to literally make the same amount of money in the long haul. So as far as what's the best investment, I'm going to go through an NFL analogy because I think that's really, really beneficial for this. So let's take the NFL, for example, right now. And I want to bring up two historically great teams, one pretty current and one semi-current. The Kansas City Chiefs, led by Pat Mahomes, and also the New England Patriots, led by Tom Brady. Now, obviously, Tom Brady played from 2003 to about 2020 or so, and probably will come back at some point in time. And then Pat Mahomes is the current dynasty in the NFL. They just came off a Super Bowl. They've been dominant. But let's talk about their approaches. The reality is the head coach of the Patriots, Bill Belichick, knew his system, knew his best investment. And Andy Reid, the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, knew his system and knew his investment, the best one for each particular situation. And so if you look at their playing styles, they're entirely different. You look at the New England Patriots, they had Gronkowski, a slow, clunky tight end, or you have Julian Edelman or Wes Welker, that's a slot receiver, really short, quick, shifty, in the middle of the field type of play. And you had the just average running backs and average receiver and average position players, but they all hinged on Tom Brady and a great offensive line. And that's why they dominated and won multiple Super Bowls. Tom has 6 in total between the New England Patriots and also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because Tom Brady was that best investment. And then around that best investment, Bill Belichick built a bunch of other complementary pieces to complement that best investment. And that strategy and that system worked for Bill Belichick and the Patriots, and they went on to win multiple championships. On the flip side, Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs are a totally different type of play. They have quick, fast, deep field receivers. They have Travis Kelce. I know all my girls listening are in love with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and they have Pat Mahomes that can sling that ball in many different ways, and they have Isaiah Pacheco, and they have all sorts of different dynamic receivers and quick people that get down the field, and they're fast and athletic and all these other things, and they built around Patrick Mahomes, which is their best investment. They even moved up in the draft to get him. And people like the Browns missed out on Patrick Mahomes because they're my Cleveland Browns. They make mistakes. They kind of suck. And they really disappoint me every single year. But here we are talking about them every single year. But the reality, guys, is when we look at the Kansas City Chiefs versus the New England Patriots, I would argue to say they both had the best investment that they could potentially make in their various players, but their strategies were entirely different. And it worked out favorably for both of them. And that's exactly what you got to think about when it comes to investments. There's no one right strategy. You have to understand everything. And let's walk through what you have to understand to get to your best investment. You have to, number one, understand the purpose and the goal of your money. I know that's like so common sense, but it's not, because I've talked to plenty of people where they just want to make a bunch of money to earn a bunch of money. It's an endless cycle. I literally got a DM today, which is what sparked this conversation. It's, hey man, where should I invest my money to make more money? I go, that's the wrong way to think about it. And I'm going to send this video, in fact, right after this is uploaded, because he needs it the most. But not even to pick on him. I see this every single day, which is why I'm really making this video. So the purpose and the goal is super important. So let's think about this. If I have a goal to retire, I'm probably going to use a 401k or an IRA to begin with. I want to select the actual account for that particular purpose, the vehicle for that purpose. If I want to save for my kids' college, I'm probably not going to use a 401k and IRA. That wouldn't make any sense because the purpose and the goal of that money is so different. Therefore, I'd probably use a 529 or something similar to it. So if I don't know the purpose and the goal of my money, how can I even go about selecting the best investment? It's nearly impossible. Secondly, I have to know my risk profile. What's the risk I'm willing to take on with this particular investment for the long haul? Well, if I'm saving for retirement, that's a 30-year goal. I have a lot more risk I probably could take on, opposed to maybe a 529 where I have 8 years left to actually invest. My risk profile, because the time I'm going to withdraw that money, is entirely different. So my investment is going to change depending on the actual goal and the purpose within the account that we actually have. And a lot of people will ask me, is it okay to have the same allocations in multiple different accounts? Yes, if everything aligns appropriately, but probably not if it has entirely different purposes and goals and timelines and risk profiles and things of that nature. And so the last piece is timing. How long do you have? Similar to the amount of time we talked about the 529 versus the retirement goals. They're totally different timelines. And then also, what's the confidence level you have in your investment? What's the conviction you have? If you go select an investment and you don't understand everything that goes into it and you're not 100% confident, what's going to happen when things get shaky, when things get volatile? You're going to freak out and panic sell. And that's what losers do. And we don't want you to be a loser. So let's stay away from doing that and let's actually get wealthy. And once you have that piece of the puzzle down, now we need to go to understanding the accounts that are used for these particular goals, and also the allocations based on the risk profile and the timeline that is acceptable for what you want to achieve. If you have this down pat, you're fine. But a lot of times people don't have this down pat and they mess things up because they don't actually go through this process of analyzing all this stuff to make sure it makes sense for them and that's the best investment for them. And so I'm going to give you guys access to a quiz. And so this quiz is not the end all be all. This is just a starting point to kind of get your allocations and get your accounts in order. So as you go through this, I want you to think of a few things. Number one is when you're actually doing this, every dollar has a different purpose. And so when I'm thinking about my retirement goals, I want you to go through the quiz thinking about that particular. I don't want you to commingle and think about 529s, retirement, early retirement, buying a house as you go throughout this investment quiz. I want you to do each one independently because that would tell me what my allocations, what my type of account I need to be using for that particular goal, which is what we were all talking about, in order to get you your best investment depending on what the goal actually is. When you piece this together the right way, you're going to get the answers to the question, what is the best investment that I can make? It depends on all the things we talked about so far, but go through this quiz. This is going to be the starting point to catapult your journey in the right way finally. And so when you come to my IG Lives, you can ask better questions than what's the best stock to pick, because there is no such thing and there's no best investment. Again, back to the very beginning of this video, if there was a best investment for everybody would have picked it by now and everybody would be sitting in it. But we have to think of everything from start to finish and the considerations that we have to go into this question in order to get the best output or the best answer. So think about, my football fans, the Chiefs versus Patriots analogy. Both excellent, both different approaches, both successful. With that being said, I will see you next Monday.